I'm going to call the meeting to order of the Reno Independent School District Special Called Meeting Monday, February 25th, 2019. It's 5:30 in the Amber Year Boardroom. Roll call, please.
Sir, Mr. Hector Garcia.
Ready. I mean,
Mr.
here. I'm
ready, Freddy. Mr. Hector Noela. Here. Mr. Ricardo Garza is here. Mr. Jose Valdez. Ms. Claudia Bali. Dr. Silvia Moreno. Ms. Monica Garcia.
Present.
You want to read? Ms. Bali, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Rios.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, all together. Ready. 1, 2, 3. Good afternoon.
Dr. Rios.
It might be, might not. Let's hope for it. Okay, well, good afternoon. Item number 1, BA number 1819-24, discussion and possible action to approve the General Operating Fund 199 budget amendment in the amount of $95,000 from electricity savings to increase funding for the operations of the Transportation Department.
So move.
Okay.
Second.
Any questions, comments? Dr. Moreno?
Could we find out at the end of the year how much we had under budgeted that department?
Yes, ma'am.
And we're taking it from electricity. We're pretty certain that it's not going to be needed in electricity, right?
Right.
Okay.
We will continue to monitor every month to ensure we have enough.
And I
funding
know
there.
that in asking about these types of amendments, I know that there's a budget item, a budget amount at the very, very beginning, and then as we go along, if we see that there's a need, and for the past several years, actually quite a few years, there's been adjustments made, and they've been brought to you, and then you end up approving them.
Right. But they shouldn't always be made
At this point in the
because we didn't
year.
prepare the budget properly.
Well-
That should trigger that when we're preparing the budget, we adjust a little bit.
Right, and that's what I think that we do, and I brought that up last time.
Yes.
We make a budget to balance it, but it's not a true budget. Because this area, they've asked for more money, but we don't give it to them, but we know we're going to have to give it to them. We want a true budget of what we're going to spend.
And I agree with you.
And it's just projection, but
Right.
they have better projections than this, so we don't go back and say, because we're just putting a number in there. I know we're not just a number, but we're putting a number in there to balance something, but we know we're going to ask for money. And I understand with the budget part of it, we don't have that money in the second half because of savings and all that. We can move money around, but we need to have a true picture on what it's going to cost us. And at the end of the year, we do have that picture, but not at the beginning of the year. So.
And I agree with you.
In all actuality, in the past committee meeting that, they presented and they were speaking about the overhauling and things of that nature to the buses, I did ask them to bring, the next time that they were going to do the budget, for them
For the
to bring us,
operating.
to bring us true numbers, because every single month or every other month, they're coming back to ask for money. And that is a very underfunded department that needs to be looked at.
And
Not
I
only
think-
that, I'm thinking about the other fleet department too.
So how many amendments have we made for them already?
Well, I will ask Ms. Ayala, how many amendments have you made to transportate, have we brought to the board for approval for transportation?
This is one part of their allocation. We were able to transfer some other funds within the same function, so that does not require board approval. But this is the second part of.
But
one
usually in the
What
past,
is the amount?
It's over 100,000.
but
every time?
historically,
150. Historically, we've always come back and added additional funds to transportation as well as operations.
right.
Yeah, those are the two we're always adding to.
Yes.
But just to get a better idea of
But
what
we
we're
also add
spending.
to substitutes, so.
Yeah,
what's
that's
the
true,
thing?
because we didn't budget for substitutes.
With substitutes, we do budget certain sub-accounts, not all of them. For instance, the teacher substitutes, we don't. However, towards the second part of the fiscal year, we start charging back employees who have exceeded their number of days, and that's how we recoup some of those funds back to fund that particular line item. But we do have plans to restore
And the
it.
95 from the electric savings, that's not all, there's a lot, there's more money in that account. We're just taking 95 from that account.
I know last month, the operations department provided an illustration of how much we were saving, so that is causing the less watts, we're using less wattage, I think that's what they call it. And so therefore, it's providing for savings on that
No,
particular
we're
account.
consuming the same, we just got a better rate at doing it, and we're
Right.
working on,
I believe he had 3 years. Obviously, you saw the third year being the
Right.
highest, and that's because, yes, we had an older contract. But for the past 2 years, you could see, because of the bar charts, that there were some
I mean,
savings there.
it's good to have something else to tap into rather than our general fund, which is, I mean, but, every year, as I speak to Mr. Rangel, you know, there's going to be added costs that are unforeseen only because of X amount of things that happen throughout the year. But we're getting very good at, I mean, narrowing the
Projecting.
gap of that budget every year. And I think we're getting very good at doing that in a lot of departments. But, I mean, and as Mr. Garcia right now, that's not the only amount. I mean, I know that there's more money in that particular fund, and it's good that operations can go ahead and tap into it. But I would suggest that we continue to monitor that fund for
Yes.
anything else that we don't have to.
Absolutely. Before we close the year, if you can recall, we always come back with this huge budget amendment because that's when we start doing our final analysis and we start putting money where we foresee negatives occurring.
One of the things that we are taking into account what, Mr. Garcia, what you have said about like being better at budgeting ahead of time. And I know that one of the things that we've always considered is, and I think that the budget has increased from last year to this year as far as the allocation to begin with, correct? Did you
Yes.
increase it a little bit? So I know that March the 1st is the freezing of the budget, especially since we're now on a 10-month cycle for this school year. So March the 1st, we've talked about that. That is going to be freezing the budget except for those particular line items that have to be, taken from. But we can do a little bit better in estimating ahead of time. I know that one of the controls that Ms. Ayala and her department has placed in there is, let's be careful about how much we budget at the very beginning. And I don't mean to say this in a disparaging way, but to be very careful about how we budget at the beginning, because then if we do run out of funding, then we have a problem. So we have to find that balance, and I think that we'll do a better job this year as far as looking at the budget and saying, well, we already spent this much last year. How much more can we put in there from the very beginning without tripping over the budget itself? So we'll do
in
better.
that case, this year, can we have like an actual budget of what is it that's needed?
That was spent
for-
this year.
No, yeah, that's needed for the departments and what's actually spent this past year versus to the balance budget that they're also
And-
going to
and
show us.
we've asked-
Because that'll give us an idea of what
Of
to
the
expect in
difference.
the coming year.
Yeah, and I will tell you that every single department does that. We've asked every single department every year, from what I understand, of course, this is the second budget cycle that I'm going to go through as superintendent. We do ask everyone, tell us what it is that you need versus how much is budgeted.
But this
And then
year,
historically,
this year, we want to see that.
ahead of
Yeah.
time. In
Yeah.
fact,
We want to
talked
see
about
that list because it never gets to us.
And-
So
and-
when we're talking about budgets, so when we asked for this, we never got to see it because it's already been in the finance office, it's already been cut. So it needs to come to us, at least so we have an idea. So,
Of
you know
what they requested.
Right. Because
And
I
I
know
will
if
tell
you
you-
ask, if you go to each one of them, they're going to ask for the world.
Yes.
And we can't afford the world. We can't afford 10 more buses.
Mm-hmm.
We can't afford that. We have to stay within our budget. But just to have an idea, if
Of
there's
what
some
they
money,
asked
if
for.
there's some money left over, where do we want to
Yeah.
place it?
And I will tell you that in April, because we were looking at the calendar a few minutes ago, actually about, 2 hours ago, we were looking at the calendar, and by the time the departments get all of their stuff done, which will be in March, the last part of March, you're going to be able to have in front of you, and we can start generating that list, or the departments can already start generating that list. By the end of March, we should already have what it is that they requested, and so in April, when you come back for the April meeting, you'll see what they have and what can be adjusted into the budget within the parameters of that budget.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, Flora, at present, is transportation the only department that needs funding?
No, it would, generally, operations will come back with additional requests eventually.
For the summer school.
Operations and transportation, and then,
Yes, well, operations mainly, since we're cutting June 30th, maybe they do have enough. I have not sat down with Angel, but generally, that is the other department that
Did we
requires additional
budget
funding.
Summer school?
Partial,
So that needs money also.
yes,
That's
ma'am.
coming, and then the last
That
thing will
is the
come with the
reason-
summer programs of what we're gonna do, painting and that.
And that's the reason why we institute a freeze.
Summer school is.
Which brings up, I mean, the whole idea of, I remember when we changed into a new provider for the electricity, we were going to try and use that money specifically for, more for capital improvement type stuff and not operating stuff, you know, so that it can be worth the monies that we save. So I guess the question is, and that's what I'm saying, is that we need to find out, and it doesn't have to be today, and it can be at the next meeting that we have at operations, where and how much we're trying to figure out how much we are saving per year, and that way we can certainly plan for it, and that way we don't have to provide such an addendum or an agenda item so that we can start pulling it away.
So
that
that
we can
would be like a cumulative report of usage compared.
If we have to.
as a
On the
comparison to
kilowatts
last year?
report, we can, I'm sure the department can generate that report for you.
When
The
is
kilowatts
ours?
used,
As a comparison to the previous.
yeah,
year?
to previous years, yes, ma'am.
When is it, when are we not replying to reports?
we have a schedule, it's 2 weeks prior to every test, and there's about 3 different testing periods. I asked Ms. Josie to be able to send it in a text form, so that way, because we did give you a paper, but it's kind of like involved. And so we're going to go ahead and pull out those particular dates. It's 2 weeks before the first testing period, and the first testing period was supposed to be 5 weeks ago, well, 5 weeks, but now, since we've gone 1 more week, is it about 4 more weeks before the first test, approximately? So 2 weeks from now, we can't be generating anything
And that's
because,
what I'd like to stress out to the board, that within those 2 weeks prior to the testing, that there's no demand on any of the departments, so they can get out of their offices and do what they need to do to concentrate on testing. And I think if we do that.
Can we put that in the form of a motion?
I think it just,
it's already
pretty
been
much there. We don't think we have to
designated.
put it in the motion.
I do also want to tell you that almost every professional in the district is asked to be part of the testing process. Everybody, whether they happen to be in CNI or not, they're in one way or another at the campuses, and that is something that we're doing because of the monitoring and making sure that things are
Not only
happening.
that, but they can also have the department be useful, free
To-
to
to-
be able to help them with that and
Right.
numbers and everything, so.
And we very much appreciate that.
Thank you.
Very, very much.
Next.
This 95,000 be used for a specific line item or for the overall budget?
It's different line items. It's different line items. If I recall the request, it has different accounts, but it's for the same purpose, for the transportation department.
For what is it? Where are they fixing with this $95,000?
Supplies, tires, can you bring it up? Is it here?
On him.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Angel, can you explain that, please?
Here it is. It is for contractual maintenance and repair, 2 items. One's for special ed and the other one's for regular transportation. And the same thing for supplies for maintenance, for special ed and regular routes.
Let me ask you a question. I know that the fleet now, the whole fleet from LISD is being taken care at the transportation department, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So when you gave that whole department or that whole fixing of, all the vehicles from the district, was a different budget allocated for that department,
The
or is
system-
it the same?
There was a system in place, a system was created to where those charges were going to be hitting those departments. And I don't know where we at. I need to follow up on that. But that was the structure that we created.
They were
Yes,
able to
the
charge,
funding
they were
was
going to be
there.
able to charge lease for police,
Yes,
maintenance, yeah.
exactly.
They were- And generate money for themselves. If they're not doing that, then we need to look at that, but
Right.
that's how it was structured.
If it required an alternator for a
Right.
police car,
They pay.
then that alternator needs to be charged to a police car.
Okay.
So there hasn't been a vote yet, right?
For what?
For
No,
number one?
we're still debating this thing. But there's a motion, there's a second, all those in favor? Against, next, thanks.
Sorry. Item number 2, discussion and presentation of the 2019-2020 annual budget. Ms. Ayala? There is, if you look in the handout that Ms. Ayala provided, you will see at the very, very beginning what the objectives are for this particular session. And as I said before, there is a calendar there. You can see what has been marked. In addition to this calendar, there's some other dates that are very important that were added. You see that 60-day bill filing deadline, which is for March the 8th, 2019, and then you've got the 86 regular legislative adjournment, so that you can see where we are looking to be able to plan for the rest of the budget, and you see several of those dates. One of the things that I wanted to make you aware of is that in April, you will be able to have a compilation of what it is that the departments as well as the campuses are asking for. And so that will be due sometime in April. If you notice, there's a board workshop on the 25th of April coming up, but at the same time, you've got the campus improvement plans, which have to be tied directly to the costs or to what it is that the campuses are asking for. That is required. On the 26th of April, those campus improvement plans are due, and then finally, you'll see the rest of the calendar. When you move on to the next slide, Ms. Ayala will be talking about the compliance aspect about the budget, and this is in regards to actual allocation of funds. Ms. Ayala?
Thank you, Dr. Rios, and good evening, Board of Trustees. So last month, Dr. Rios covered the planning and decision-making process requirements under policies B and BQ legal, and explained the major role of the site-based decision-making committee in the development of the campus improvement plan. Here today, under the current policies, the budget must be prepared according to generally accepted accounting principles, the rules adopted by the State Board, and the adopted policies of the Board of Trustees. The district also under policy recognizes the importance of maintaining its fiscal integrity. Therefore, it has developed policies to support its mission and its goals and objectives. Under CE legal, the law is telling us that we need to publish our proposed budget summary in accordance to our timeline. We also have CE local, which includes budget planning and evaluations. It's a continuous process, our continuous processes. And also that the capital budget shall be adopted as part of the annual budget process. Under CA local, the superintendent and CFO are instructed to develop and submit a balanced budget for the Board of Trustees approval. The district shall not compromise the long-term financial integrity to achieve short-term benefits. Under CT local, we must prepare and adopt a multi-year capital plan, and that capital plan is within 3 years. Under DC local,
Currently, is that our 5-year plan?
I think the department is currently presenting 5 years, but under our policy, it states 3. Minimum, yes, ma'am. Under DC local, any new positions shall be approved by the trustees when the budget is approved. And under the Texas Education Code, Chapter 42, Subchapter C, all special allotment direct costs should be adhered to. And in the bottom, you see a chart. As an example, for special educational allotment, we are required to spend a minimum of 52% of the amount. Total allocation right now in the budget stands at $14 million. These are examples, and you have the rest of the programs there. Under federal fiscal compliance, the district must follow certain federal requirements when accepting
On those
federal.
percentages, we are required to spend those percentages, but we generally are spending a much higher amount.
Yes, ma'am.
But none of those are based on a biennium
No,
Right.
this is
These are
annual.
all something that we're going to,
Yes.
And we are spending a little bit, we are spending more, and that's one of the questions that I asked Ms. Ayala. Were there any that we were in direct, how do you say, like exactly at that percentage? And she said that there are some that are very close to that particular percentage. And when I did ask also about the difference between the direct cost and the indirect cost, and the direct cost is, of course, for the program itself to be able to serve the kids for those particular programs.
Quick question, in the special ed money, is there any special ed money that's allocated for transportation, for bus, for compliance and all that, and do we use it?
Yes. If you recall right now, when I showed you the amendment, part of that money was going for special education purposes.
Coming from their budget, coming from that budget, federal, I'm talking about
What was
federal
allocated?
funds.
Federal funds, no. We're using local funds for special.
I understand, but I'm saying, is there any money coming in that's allocated to the federal funds from special ed that's allocated, that you can use for
Transportation.
I would need to check.
transportation, because it's compliance and the seating and all that? I would imagine there would be money put, do you know if there's any in that area?
The buses, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Like harnesses, like belts, specialized belts and all of that.
The lifts.
Which we always do.
Right.
And, but a specialized, just particular, no, not that I know of.
Buses
about
that have,
yeah.
buses that have lifts for kids that are wheelchairs and all that?
Yeah, the lift will be allowed, just to make it appropriate to service the students, yes, sir.
But how about like Suburbans, vans and things of that nature for that?
The vehicle itself.
The vehicle itself, well, it depends on the budget. We will need to look at the budget. About 8 years ago, when we had the era funding, that's when we were able to purchase the buses that we purchased in 2011, 2010.
so are you saying a retrofit type or a bus specific, or
Yeah,
a
it's 'cause-
Suburban specifically made for them?
Yeah, because there's actually there's a specific MV vans and like things of that nature, because we purchased them out of the 5310 grant that we get through monies for people with disabilities. And they're actually specialized for lifting the wheelchairs, and they have special seating and things of that nature that's already allocated into the MV ones that we have that are already specialized for that. That there's, because it's more expensive to retrofit any harness or anything that you're going to do versus to purchasing it that way already. Because, I mean, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the vans that we purchased, it's a 12-passenger van with a capacity of, I'm not mistaken, six wheelchairs, and it's a total cost of $80,000. But it's a 12-passenger special ed vans.
And that's what I say, if that money could be
Right.
allocated coming out of somewhere else instead of coming from the main budget,
Yeah.
you're actually saving
but
money,
I-
and we gotta spend
Right.
anyway.
We need to comply on the type of vehicles that are allowed. We can't use vans for transporting students. So there are specific vehicles, and yes, we
Okay,
can
what
certainly
type of
put it in
vehicles are we
the
talking
What do
about?
you mean
grant.
you can't don't we transport kids in Suburbans and, yeah,
The Suburbans, yes, but I heard vans, so.
vans
yeah.
are the same thing.
No,
as
no, no,
Suburbans.
it's
Well,
the
just
same
like
thing as
them.
Suburbans,
We're
it's a
transferring
question.
kids to tournaments in vans. How can, in athletic vans?
We don't use vans to
You have
transport
the
students,
little
no.
white fleet, right?
Those little
Yeah.
white things are called vans.
Is there a need for this type of mini buses?
We do
vans?
transport them, but 16-passenger vans, TA does not allow us
Now,
to be.
60, I know
No, they're
that.
not
No.
60, they're bigger
But 8 to
units
10
that,
it is.
yeah.
You're talking about the Class C buses, right?
Yeah.
The mini ones.
The smaller
Like
ones.
the white ones that we currently
Yeah.
have. We haven't looked into actually purchasing those types of buses because it would be more effective to be able to pop out $10,000 to $15,000 to buy maybe a bigger bus that could probably host a lot more kids. That would be able to host 4 to 5 wheelchairs, but then at the same time would be able to host at least 10 other kids that have certain deficiencies that we could carry at the same time. So it would be more cost efficient to be able to purchase buses that are a little bit bigger, that might be a little bit more expensive, but it would fit a lot more kids in a route.
Right, but if you're putting that money coming from federal funds, it doesn't come out from our
Exactly.
budget, so it's it's inexpensive because it's not coming out, you use that money to purchase something else, because this money is coming from money that we have to spend anyway.
You're talking about the buses that we currently have for like athletics and stuff, right?
Well, I'm talking about,
Yeah.
So long as we can,
Smaller buses.
no, so long as we can allocate the monies that pertain to that department rather than pulling it out of this general fund or whatever it is.
But right now, at this current point, that 14 million that you see up there, that 14,028,000 is mostly for services. Is that correct, Mr. Gomez? For services and for staff that serve special education.
But
So-
what are the specifications on that grant money that you're getting? Because every money that you get federally that is for special education or for special needs or whatnot, they come with specifications. What are the specifications on that money?
Yes. And again, the specifications are that for any specialized equipment that the students would need to meet their
So
individual
equipment can
IEPs.
actually be used as rural transportation.
So
correct?
then you would have
Definitely
to
look into
find,
that, Ms. Garcia. We'll definitely look into that.
Can you
yes.
please?
Yes, sir.
I was going to say that is the case, but then since we're already exceeding the allocation, that means that you would have to find money to pay for the other services that are exceeding the 14 million, because we're already over the 14 million. We have to spend 7,295,000, but we're spending actually more than 14
How
million.
much are we
correct?
spending?
you already spent it all.
Right. So
Basically.
actually budgeting,
State money.
Mande?
Is this state money?
State, it has to be
Yes.
state.
Yes.
Yes.
State.
Correct? This is state
Yes.
funding, right?
Well, they
That's
were
the
talking about
allotment, right.
federal funds,
So-
being able to use federal funds, not state.
This is state money.
so, right, we're talking about just different
just-
funding
Two different
sources.
things.
Just look.
Yes.
Yeah, just.
And the way to know is, first of all, we have to find out we have capacity in the IDEA federal grant, and if we get authorization from TEA.
Okay,
Yeah.
Those are the two things.
thank you.
Now, for the special ed allotment, we are spending about $17 million, so it's over the allocation amount.
Do you actually have, like, for that special education element, do you actually have a breakdown of what you're spending?
Yes.
Okay, can you,
We have it in
where is that information?
It's in the background to the business support services agenda.
Okay, so
and
it's
it's also-
actually broken down of how we're spending it, right?
Yes,
Okay.
by object, I believe that's how it's spent out. Now, moving on to the federal fiscal compliance, we have under ESSA, the maintenance of effort and comparability of services. And under the IDEA, we have the maintenance of efforts, excess costs, and shared services arrangement. The budgeting process is comprised of three major phases, which is the planning phase, preparation, and evaluation. The budgetary process begins with sound planning. Planning defines the goals and objectives of campuses and the school district and develops programs to attain the goals and objectives. Once programs and plans have been established, budgetary resource allocations are made to support them. The budgetary resource allocations are the preparation phase of budgeting. Those allocations cannot be made, however, until plans and programs have been established. We have provided you a copy of the budget instructions manual, which is I think you have a copy. It was supposed to be a black and white version, but I think you got some color in it. And in that manual, it provides general guidelines and directives in the planning and preparation of the 2019-2020 budget for all campuses and departments.
And
So-
this is the manual you're talking about, correct?
Yes. That is what's in our website, also provided to all schools and departments. Here we have the proposed budget assumptions. The average daily attendance is the major funding driver and is the number of students attending school on an average day. We are forecasting ADA of 21,600 students in average daily attendance. Then we have the tax rate. A school district's property tax rate is made up of the maintenance and operations, which is, we refer to it as the M&O tax rate, and the interest and sinking tax, we refer to it as the INS tax rate. The M&O tax rate provides funds for the maintenance and operation cost of a school district, and the interest and sinking, the INS tax rate, provides funds for payments on the debt that finances the district's facilities.
ADA question, what's the average amount of monies we get from the state for each student?
The average amount, the funding is, you have three drivers that provides funding, which is the ADA, the tax rate, and the property value, tax collections, as a matter of fact. And so all of those things come into play. The average kid generates on a daily basis is about $42, depending on the kid. But
That's from the three entities or just from the state?
no, from the three things, all those three things combined. Because if you tax the citizens within the boundaries, but you're not collecting any of those taxes, you are not going to get any state aid match. So we're not going to meet the budget. So all of them, they need to perform at the same time.
Thank you.
Thank you. So there are 24 districts in our, there's 36 districts in the Region 1, and 24 of those districts are already at $1.17. Our district is at $1.04. There's 4 school districts that are currently at $1.04 at this time, but most of them are already at $1.17. We do have capacity for those 13 pennies, but it requires an election if we want to go beyond the $1.04.
Is there anybody lower than 104?
Yes, that will be Web Consolidated. They are at $1. So in talking about property values, the funding for the district is a shared responsibility between the local school district and the state of Texas. The district's share, known as the local fund assignment, is determined by its wealth in terms of property value. A district's value is set by the state comptroller's property tax division and is a year behind the school year. So if you notice, we're using the 2018 tax year value while we prepare the 1920 budget. As the school district's property value increase, the state contribution will decrease, assuming all other variables remain constant. And you're going to see that right now in the last slide.
What's the tendency? Has it been increasing over the years? Or
Yes, and we do have a slide, and I will show you in a minute.
Real quick question, what would the difference be in the 13 cents to be at 113? What would that generate?
$1.17, it would generate about $20 million more.
We were going over that this afternoon.
Not that we want to do that, just.
No, I know. But I was asking, how much does 1 penny increase? And we had a discussion about that
Well,
this afternoon.
that only makes sense.
800,000
800,000?
in average, right?
Yeah.
So our, in our tax collections,
Well, what you don't say here is that that's going to jump up, and then over the next course of the next year or so, it's going to come back down, right?
I did meet with the appraiser last week, and it appears that our values are pretty stable. And if anything, we'll see a very slight increase, not material, but it's better than a decrease.
And I think that one of the most important things to realize is that the more that we collect locally, the less state aid. It's inverse,
But
in essence.
not on the, not on the
Value.
tax.
No, not on the value.
If you collect a higher percentage of your
Oh,
assessed
yes,
taxes, you
absolutely.
get more money from the state.
Correct.
Correct.
Yes, the state match increases.
Right.
What
So-
is the, so then what is the effect when the certifiable property value from the state increases? Does that affect this
Yes, and you will see, I will explain that.
It's coming up
during
in
the
a
last
couple of
slide.
slides.
Very good.
Yes. So in our tax collections, we are anticipating a 98% tax collection rate. So under M&O tax collection, we're using $23.9 million to budget. Here we have the student funding elements, again, a major funding source. If you look at the last column, we are using ADF 21,600. All of these numbers are student FTEs, student counts, they're not dollars and cents. Here we have ADA and enrollment. If you look at the regression line, you'll see that our enrollment is declining. There is a correlation of ADA with enrollment, and so we do anticipate that if our enrollment does not increase, our ADA will continue to decrease. Here we have more information on property values. And Mr. Noyola, to answer your question, in year 2010, we started seeing a slight declining of values, but then after 2015, our values began to increase. So what that means, as property values increase, the state aid decreases. It has an inverse relationship.
That's shops. Remember the
Who
shops?
determines that?
The value?
No, when, do different entities get to determine to increase the property value or the valuation?
It's the Webb County Appraisal District that determines that.
Just wanted you to say that. Not us.
Right, it's not us,
Exactly.
which is approved rate, the value, I'm sorry. And here we have the property tax rates. If you look at the blue lines, it's pretty much standard at 104. What changes is the INS. Back in tax year 2014, it went up to 141, and that was because we sold bonds at that point in time. And again, it increased in tax year 2018 because we sold more bonds. And now we have the estimates of revenues and expenditures. And we look at the revenues. Remember, we were talking about increases in property value? Well, here it is. The net effect is a loss of 4.2, a decrease of funding from the state, partially because we are projecting 288 less and increasing property value. So that is the amount that we have to plan for, because that amount correlates to the ending deficit that we have in our projection.
And I know that this afternoon, we had a question a little bit about how much of that 4.2 million decrease in funding, how much is attributed to the value, the property value increase. So that's like 2.6 million out of that 4.2 can be attributed to the property value. And then the other one is the 1.4, more or less, is in the reduction of students. ADA.
Wait,
So that out of that 4.2, how much can be attributed to the decline in the number in the ADA? It's about 1.4. The rest of that is actually because we had a rise, an increase in the property values. And when you have an increase in the property values, you're going to get less money from the state, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So about 2.6, more or less, is due to the rise in the
Property
values of the
But-
property.
but according to this,
Decrease.
we're getting 4.2 less from the state.
Right.
We're not projecting very much less locally.
Right, because we're using the same 4.2 as in the collections of taxes. The certified value lags a year, right? So that is what we anticipate. The comptroller already certified that value. But right now, we are projecting in our local revenue for the property value to maintain the same amount, and therefore, we kept the local resources in the same amount.
So the difference is in state aid, not in local collection.
Correct.
tax rate.
At this point in time, yes. It's not until July that we get the certified values that we're going to know what the impact would be.
So, I mean, if you break it down to, I'm doing crunching numbers over here. So, because we went down, are you basing yourself on the 2 point some odd million dollars that we're losing
Didn't the mall
on,
have an impact on
less than
taxes?
like 73 kids?
No.
200.
So you're saying
It's-
200 from 22,093 to 21,600, right?
No, from 21,800 that we originally budgeted, at the end of the fourth 6 weeks, we had a count of
Right.
21,527. We are budgeting
Right,
21,600.
so it's based
88.
on those 200, about $8,000 per child.
It's actually 1.4 million
million combined.
less that can be attributed to that 200
That decline.
difference.
Okay,
Yes.
just trying to get a sense of that cost.
That
Okay.
1.4 million that I'm saying is actually attributed to 200 less in the 88,
Students.
correct?
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The rest of that 2.6, the one that's left, it's the 1.4 plus 2.6. The 2.6 is because of the rising property values.
Right. No, I get it. I get it. I was just trying to get a sense of how we can.
Yeah.
So in our expenditures, we did restore the payroll cost category to 12 months. So that's why you see that increase of $20 million. I think we also restored other categories in contractual services. That's why you see $484,000 more. And also the athletics funds, we restored it by $183,000.
What is this $10 million that's negative on the bottom?
Well, because we're not restoring the capital projects fund, that was a one-time transfer that it's in this current fiscal year.
Now, this is, if you remember, or you were not here, Ms. Garcia, one of the things that we talked about was that this was the worst-case scenario, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And what I mean by that is that if things stay the way they are, and if we budget based on a 12-month budget, then we're saying, well, we have to find a way to be able to think in terms of that there's $4 million that we would have to balance, to be able to appropriate enough for 12 months. Now, this was on the worst-case scenario. Now, in addition to that, we still have to wait to see what the state is going to be appropriating for all school districts, and that won't happen until
Hopefully at the end of May, early
by
June.
the end of May. Then we'll know, well, what would our true budget, what would our true revenues be like at that time?
So by when do we need to approve our budget?
We need to approve the budget by June the 30th, but by that time, we've also been given some other numbers from MOC, right?
Lynn Mook, it was just a model scenario.
It's just a model, and so most of the time, he's been pretty good about forecasting what our revenues are going to look like, what our school numbers are going to be like. So we're saying to ourselves, okay, we already know that if we were to, all things being equal, if we were to appropriate what we've been appropriating from last year to this year, we're already looking at having to balance $4 million. So that's one of the things. Now, based on the numbers that we have, based on my conversation with Ms. Ayala, and Ms. Ayala, you can jump in here, please do so. This number will not stay at that number. It'll be a better number than that, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And so we're
What type
just
of better
telling you.
number are we talking about?
That's also with, that is from that last year to this year.
Right.
That's still not considering, we're looking at, you know what, an increase over here.
And an
We want
increase
to
over
see the
there.
athletic department take a 3 or 4% increase on equipment across the board, because we haven't
Right.
done that in 10 years.
Right.
So those are the things that we want to look at, plus what campuses really need.
Right.
At all the schools,
And,
so.
and that, you're absolutely
Right.
right. If you also remember, this was a 10-month budget, and we put aside some monies just to transition and have that cash flow. And one of the conversations that I was having with Ms. Ayala this afternoon, if you remember, we had 22 million, 10 million was set aside for the admin building, and then we had a little more than 10
But you
million.
can't bring that to this
No, I
budget.
understand.
Okay.
But there are some things that if you are creating, if you're going to say, I'm going to buy this thing, whatever it happens to be, and we want to appropriate some from that 10 million, we can.
For
so that it
one-time
can-
expenditures.
For a one-time expenditure. So I'm just saying that those are some of the things that we can look at. But we really can't look at that until we've already gone through at least June so that we can see, oh, well, now we do have that 10 million left over that we can use for those big ticket items, which then you, as a board of trustees, can designate. Now, we obviously do not want to recommend getting rid of all of that 10 million because obviously we want to have some flexibility.
We really have 20 million, because I know that we
We're at
dedicated
22
10 million
million.
to the building.
Yes.
But we could take some of that from the bond money, because it's in the bond money that we said that it was going to be for construction.
If we have leftover funds, right, after completion of our
construction.
projects.
Right.
yes.
So that's just more money that you pull aside, yeah.
And so we're just being very cautious. We are looking at numbers, and we'll have a truer picture as we get further into our budget process. So when we say we are asking the departments to look at their budget, we're asking them to compare what they had last year, what are they going to prioritize, and that's why we have that capital improvement plan. At the same time, we want to say what are one-time costs or things that we want to buy that we can start thinking ahead of time, but we have to just be very cautious, and we have to say we want to work within those parameters. We did have that 22 million, but we've already set aside, those 10, and then we have the 11 or so that we want to be able to think about a little bit further, plus
But
the
we
figures.
also need to look at, there's a very good chance that the state is going to give teacher the pay raise,
Yes.
which is going to keep us out of that. But we still need to be able to budget for paraprofessionals and for administration.
Right.
Because that has to come from us, because it's not going to come from the
Exactly.
state.
Well,
And
for everyone else, though, I mean, even custodians.
No, everybody
and-
besides teachers.
All the
yeah.
others. all
That's
the
what I'm
others.
saying, everybody else.
And if you think about looking at the budget right now, we're looking at the budget as is, like with no increases right now.
Right.
So as we move forward, we need to think about that plus insurance costs. Because you know that the insurance always comes up 10%, more or less, approximately. So those are things that are not yet in the budget that we're constricted, so to speak. But when we come back next, I don't know, are we having another one on next month, or is it for the month after?
We'll
Because
talk
we'll be
about it
collecting
because
all of the stuff
information,
from the
yes.
campuses in March. So and we're also going to have that freeze, and then we'll have that mid-year review.
The information is not going to move, it's going
Are we
to
in
be
the
the
freeze
same.
yet?
Yes, well, effective March the 1st. Now, June the 16th is the magic day. It's a 20-day deadline for the governor to sign or veto the funding bill. So after that day, we have to turn everything around. So we need to pre-plan everything before, so that we can present the budget for adoption in June the 20th.
So it's a really pretty fast turnaround time, but I think that as you all have done over the past few years, you've done a really good job. I think the district has done a really good job of putting it together. So it's going to be a little quicker, but we have to get the numbers in and be able to be ready so that when these proposals come to you, all the way from the cost from the insurance to, is there any other proposal for teacher, or not, excuse me, not teacher, but employee,
When will we finish paying that debt service 511,
Dixon, Alexander,
409?
2025? Which one? The QSAP?
The QC,
2021.
2021?
Yes, ma'am.
2 years.
Almost.
What?
De aquí ya mero lo pagamos.
Yeah.
It's interest-free. It's good loan.
So how confident do you feel, Ms. Ayala?
No comments.
We'll make
As
it.
far as the numbers are
We'll
concerned
submit a
from
balanced
what,
budget.
right, and as far as the numbers that are being generated by consultants and so on, we feel like we'll be able to hopefully get on the other side of that.
Yes,
Right.
ma'am.
Now, let me ask you, what is the lowest hourly rate that we pay our employees?
$9, I believe.
Ms. Ramirez, do you remember what was the lowest hourly rate?
It's $9, right? We start, the minimum is 9.
I thought we had a minimum of $10.
No, 9.
Oh, went to-
We went to 9 when everybody else was
We
still
went
at
to minimum,
7.
we went to minimum of 9. But nobody's making less than 9, because we made it, we voted
Right.
on that.
The federal requirement's lower.
Is there anything else on the, well, I know everybody, and you're going to get to see everybody's budget proposal coming up.
We are too.
The breakdown that I'm interested in is now, for instance, at transportation, we're always going to get, unspecified or unbudgeted amounts, because there's going to be some things that are going to happen, and he gets directly affected by that. Is there anything else that you can provide us so that we can up here know, throughout the year, there are certain things that happen that might increase, trigger something like that? And because as much as I'm proud of the fact that we've come a long way over the past 4 or 5 years in really pinpointing, and getting a little bit better at giving us the exact cost every year, and so that
Yes.
we don't have to tap into other fund balances to try and
Right.
fulfill that.
So.
I know it's
again,
difficult, but-
Our goal is to provide a balanced budget for your approval, because that's what policy states. So at the end, we might end up tweaking, because probably there's a priority that the board
I'm
wants
talking
to-
about the other side before the approval, that, in every line item that there is, if there's anything in there that requires you to tweak it in order for that, in order for you to balance out. In other words, let's say transportation is 300,000 a year for his budget. For that amount, how much are you adding? What was it, 275 and 25 for the unforeseen? And then after that, it became
No.
another 25 after that?
Our budget is pretty much tight. We do not have room for fluff.
Okay, that's the word.
I meant to, I don't
For
need
lack
to
of a
be.
better word.
Right. So, right, and what happens at the very end, we start reducing to ensure that we provide you with a balanced budget.
Okay, good.
And
Yes, it's-
coming from a campus, I will tell you that the campuses do have their committees, and they pretty much determine, this is where I want to put my money in this year. This year, I want to spend this much on staff development, or I want to spend this much on this program or not this program. And one of the things that we've been trying to do, and I've been talking to Dr. Cruz about, is to be very, very conscientious about what is it that we want to do, let's say in CNI, which is really the whole meat of why we're here, what our purpose is as a district. One of the things that we're doing is we want to be able to align the curriculum so that instead of buying this and buying that and buying this other, and this way we have a very set curriculum and resources already, so that way it's not all these expenditures for these different things.
Right.
So,
But the only thing, just a little, I disagree with a little, is that you sound like my father in today's world. You hear me? He thought, here's $2, go to the movies, and the movie costs you $5.
yeah, you have to make
And that's what you're doing
adjustments.
to our principals. So you're setting them up for, we're not saying that for failure, but you're making them you're making them make a choice that they shouldn't be making, because they're making a choice on our kids.
Yes.
Instead of saying, you know what, find money to do that, I want you to do this, to go to a movie, here's $5, because that's what it's going to cost you. Not give them $2 and say, well, you need to choose.
Absolutely.
Sneak in, or, I mean, yeah.
No, Mr. Garcia.
It is,
No, I
it is.
understand.
Or get a fundraiser, or go and ask the board members to give us money.
Yes,
That,
and
mu-
that-
that more and more of our money is going for things that you should fund, or the district should, not us.
And I'm
In
glad
our
that
reality,
you're,
what he's saying is true, because we get $75,000 to give back to the kids. And I had this discussion with Ms. Ayala, and I did tell her, it doesn't matter the money we get, because it goes back to our
It goes
schools
back to their budget.
regardless.
Yeah.
But it never goes back for something
Extra.
That's a
extra. It
Right.
always goes back to, oh, we have to pay the charter bus, oh, we have to pay for this, oh, we have, I mean, things that the district itself should be paying for. That's what we are paying for.
And I'm glad that you all are seeing that, because this is something that, as an advocate, and I know that Dr. Moreno can probably agree that she's heard me say this.
No, but-
I'm one of the ones that says we need to have it ahead of time.
No, but
We
the
need
thing,
to have
the
it
thing
ahead of
about
time.
this, Dr. Rios, and going back to that same sentiment that Mr. Garcia is stating, if you know already that the TEA is going to require more money for the buses and it's more expensive already, why are you not allocating more transportation money for the schools if you know they're not even going to make it a half year?
And those are things, those are good questions to ask. And so all I can say is that we do have a pot of money. If you put more in one, then we have to
That's why
find
it's
it for
important for
someplace
me
else.
to see the actual budget that they're asking for versus to the balanced budget that's going to be asked for, because it makes sense to actually see it.
And we can't fund everything.
And then I understand that, but it's just something we need
yeah.
to start looking at.
Yeah, you give Mr. Serna, you give anybody, he's gonna ask for everything he can get. I
Exactly.
don't blame him.
Right?
And,
I don't
and
blame
well,
him.
I mean,
Because
so that's where,
we've
so,
been neglected so much. You know, you've been giving them bread, and now you're telling them you can get bologna or cheese. Well, you know, I don't want everything, but you pull
Yeah,
everything from
but
them.
it's because sometimes things on that
Right.
budget is going to be important that we already know that we've been putting it aside for the past 5 years.
I think that's,
Then we
that's
can
where
probably set precedents on it.
we should be able to also, I mean, not only plain devil's advocate here, we should also be able to determine that if they come to us for money, that that particular school, you already gave them some for a certain field trip.
It's like
or
the
whatever it is,
travel
instead of
fund that you know
We have
we
to say-
have.
but we have
Like,
to say
let's
yes
just
or
per
no.
se that, the travel fund. Well, I didn't know I needed to get my receipts for food. Well, guess what? I had to pay my money back. So in our reality, that's actually meaning that, you know, I had to go to this trip, but I didn't eat because I'm not providing that receipt back. It's kind of like, well, I
Those
didn't
are
know
all-
that because in the city, I don't have to. They don't require you for you to have a receipt.
Nobody requires it. but
Nobody
the school
requires
district.
receipts.
I
And
was
it's
a
like, we have to
council member
eat
too.
food.
We do have a legal opinion. If I were to give you a per diem, it constitutes compensation for a board member. That is the reason why, in order for, you're not
The
entitled to
city has an opinion
compensation.
on, the city
Yeah.
has an opinion on that too, and it's the same opinion.
It's the same opinion across the
Yeah,
board.
But no, but the
Right,
city,
but the
but the city
city
people
gets-
get paid,
get
the city
paid,
council people
right.
get paid, and so
They're
that's
No,
why.
no, 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 no,
it's
that's
different.
across the board, even for employees and for
But we're not-
everybody.
it's because we don't get paid.
No, but employees regardless, not even the councilman.
Well, but that's not a big deal. You just provide the receipt and that's it.
Well, yeah, but I didn't know.
But no,
I forgot.
Let me change
Now I have
the
to pay the
subject a
money
little
back.
bit, Ms.
I gave up the
Ayala.
fight a long
Going
time
back
ago.
to the minimum hourly rate, can you get us what an employee who earns minimum wage, in this case, 905, will
You
earn?
want it,
What jobs do they have? Is that what you're asking for? The
Yeah,
905?
yeah, the numbers as to, okay, how much would that employee earn
Oh.
at 905? How much will it cost for that employee to pay for insurance for him or her, and the insurance for, let's say, a family of 4?
Oh.
And let's see how well we are actually, you know, taking care of our employees.
Like, in other words, if we already know this person makes this much a month,
Which is 905, which is the lowest we pay.
for 40 hours a
a
week.
scenario type.
yeah, for 40 hours a
An employee
week.
earning $9 an hour, and then if they have the family plan, how much their net income would be?
Yeah, like how much would they actually have to spend in insurance for that
It is
employee and for the
expensive. Our
family?
family plan is very expensive.
So,
Afford insurance at $9 an hour.
and that's what
over
I'm,
$1,000 a month.
right, and that's what
gonna
I'm
buy
trying to
Band-Aid
get to.
and-
So maybe we should try to look into what can we do to actually help our lowest paid employees to be able to get into
What is it
better-
that the district contributes right now?
$358.
Close to $400, yeah.
And, but, you know, one of the things that we, 3 years ago, we said the same thing, that they're not going to be able to afford it, but the only thing else, and they can do this outside, I don't think through our program, they can get a supplemental, you know, to at least have something.
They will, most of the employees who will be in that range will probably just have their own single insurance.
I can run you
They
a
won't have their
report
family insurance.
of the number of FTEs that are at $9 and if they're members of the plan or not.
And then are they full-time? Because
Right.
some of them are not necessarily full-time.
Right,
Yeah.
Right.
perfect.
And the part-timers may not be eligible because it depends on the number of hours that they work. But I can get you on the full-timers, definitely.
Thank
I
you.
just said we
Appreciate
need
it.
to look at that, and even if, I know Dr. Moreno is going to shoot me after this, but even if we have to allocate, you know what, we do that every 4 years or 5 years, to put a chunk of money and say, okay, this is the one time, one spend. Helmets, I know in athletics, I'm just going because they talked to me, helmets went up from whatever they're $430 more for a helmet. And that's, if you don't have a state helmet because of.
You have to have it.
Yeah. So the budget, everything that was for everything else is just going for a helmet. And at the campus, just for bands, for ROTC, for basketball, everything. Academics. And we might have to take a bunch. It's okay, you know what, this year we're going to allocate so much.
We're going to infuse
one-time.
this much.
Yeah, infuse that money into the district.
And I will tell you that this year, Ms. Ayala did create a budget for transportation past district for those who are winners, or not winners, but who are moving on to the next level, because that wasn't in there. And I don't know how many districts do allocate discretionary funds, and I know that whatever you do is very, very helpful to the students, but we've been looking at ways to look at budgets so that we can still stay within the parameters, be balanced, but at the same time provide more for our students. Obviously, we always are going to want more. I know as a former principal, I mean, I do agree with you, but we are working within that.
My question on that, how much of the TA did go up, Mr. Rangel, for the transportation cost per? How much was it last time?
Oh, the amount we get from TA is very little compared to the expenditure.
No. What I'm asking is, how much are you charging per mile now, for trip?
Oh, I don't know the rates.
It went up, which principals did, I know principals did have kind of like an issue with it, but it went up to 150 flat rate, local, and it went up.
But why did it go up? Was it a regulation from the state or what?
No, it was like around 2 to 3 years of looking into it and actually looking into see how it could help out our budget to be able to not to be in the negative so much. So currently we're doing very well on that account. We're not doing as bad as we were last year because of the help that we got from, of course, the board and the superintendent to be able to raise the rates to be able to say 150 flat rate and $3.50 per mile going out of town, which it should have been more, but we kind of found a very even middle ground to be able to say just to break even, because we're not in the business to making money. We're in the business to at least covering our costs. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
But we raised that part, which is okay.
And what about the other part?
But we didn't give principals more money.
Exactly.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
The reason that I asked this question was just to say what he just said. We were not putting it in the other side. So at the end of the day, it's never going to be a balance.
Yeah, Mr. Perez, I'm giving you less money. So we raised their prices and cut their budget. Well,
Exactly.
Well, that was one of the
Doesn't make sense.
what do you call it? That was one of the responses that happened. That's why principals did not want to pick up the fund, because, I mean, obviously, you're paying for it. So you're just taking from one pocket to put into the other.
yeah,
It
well,
just
you know what,
revolves
bring us
around
something-
LISD regardless.
Bring us something that's going to help our principals.
Right, and we discussed it.
Transportation, Esteban, keep praying that gasoline doesn't go to over $4, $5 a gallon.
Like the way it used to
You're doing
be.
a good job.
Oh, we're going to.
So we did have a conversation because we know that we have not adjusted the local budget for the
Yes.
schools. And that is actually something that we do plan if we get additional funding to address from the very beginning, because yes, one side went up, but we did not increase the local
And I do want to.
budget for the schools.
I do want to ditto that, because that conversation was held last time. And in fact, even today, we talked about that we had to make an adjustment for principals' budget, not principals' budgets, campus budgets, especially if the state does infuse more money. We do need to do that. And
need to
it's
look at the
time.
5 and 8%
It's
increase.
time. It needs to
We'll
happen.
bring up, we do give
10%
a per
increase.
pupil allotment.
Okay.
And it's included in your budget instructions, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. May I proceed?
Please.
Item number 3, discussion and possible action to approve the sixth grade initiatives, including Lamar Middle School sixth grade campus for the 2019-2020 school year. Over the past year and a half,
Before you go into your conversation, I make a motion to table this table the 6th grade campuses for a year and go to the plan of teaming. Bring us back a breakdown on what the cost of that's going to be, at least for one more year. The superintendent has said that she wants to try this, and this will be part of her evaluation and everybody's evaluation to do this and see if we can get where we need to be without causing a big ruckus all across the campuses. So we're going to give it one more try with a plan that she has. You're talking about 7th and 8th too. We'll do 6th right now. Look at 7th and 8th, give us those numbers, and then we'll go from there.
I'm going to second discussion.
Motion,
Can
second.
I'll second it, but can we identify, and you don't have to do it today, but at CNI, you'll provide us with a more thorough explanation as to what you're going to stay in task with, right?
They're going to come back with that's what we want to ask them for.
But I have a question before we go on. I was looking at all the specifications for this, and my question to you is when was the last time we revisited boundary lines?
And that was one of the questions. In fact, we met on Saturday, and I believe Dr. Moreno talked a little bit. I wasn't around here. Was it 2000?
I was working with the school district.
2000?
But isn't that something like we need to start looking at? And the reason I'm asking is because, I mean, I think, this, putting aside the 6th graders is a good thing, but it's also what I'm actually seeing, and I've been looking at the reports to where we have, Nixon with like 2,100 students, we have Martin with like 2,000 students, but then you have Cigarroa High School with 1,500 students. And my point to this is this: I am in construction here right now. So with that being said, Caguas is getting rebuilt, Ligarda is getting rebuilt, so is Cigarroa Middle School, and so is Cigarroa High School. So this is the moment in time where we actually have to allocate more space, put a level playing field across the board, because we're one district, but we're actually playing in 3 different districts. What districts are we at right now, to Maggie?
Let's say 5A and 3A.
And what is Cigarroa? And Nixon is in 6A. And isn't it more healthier to do it like
This
that?
is a shock to us when they put us in 6A.
No, but I mean, I'm saying, like, isn't that something that we can visit?
The superintendent was supposed to bring us boundaries, so we were going to look at that when we did the 6th grade campuses, but now we're not doing that. We still need to look at the modeling. I agree 100% with that.
Yeah, but can we, like, look into the cost of a demographer to see if we can start looking into something like that?
Yeah,
What do they cost? Yeah, that's fine.
a cartographer, demographer.
Yeah, you don't need our permission, it's under 25,000.
But students is not
I think it
defined
costs
by the
them.
boundary line.
No.
So you wanna go to Nixon?
Well, not even that, but we need to make them abide by it, because this type of special permissions is not going to be working, because you have to give a playing field to everybody, because at the end of the day, it's not giving, fair advantage to all schools as a whole.
But now with the magnets.
Yeah, but now with the magnet, they can go anywhere they want.
Yeah, but still, I mean, you would actually allocate the same amount of students to our high schools, to our middle schools, and to our elementary and stuff, and then we can probably be having this issue that we've been talking about, that instead of hiring more teachers and more teachers from more campuses, you have a same amount of students, and we probably won't need the same amount of teachers.
You're never going to have the same amount of students because of your magnet schools. Because you have a bigger,
Yeah, but I mean, I just think we should revisit the boundary line.
There's no question about
Yeah.
that. We actually said
I can bring you back some information
Believe me,
on,
Nixon wants to go back and redo the boundary. They love to go back to 5A.
Well, can we finish voting this, and then?
For Nixon to be competing with
Right.
the United
We're,
Schools.
we're working with them, but it's a hard fight for
They
them.
have double the enrollments.
Well, then can we finish voting on this, and can we motion
We're up for the
to
task.
go for that?
Oh, yeah.
Can we do that, Tito?
With a baby.
maybe, may I suggest that we bring you back some information on who can do this study completely, I mean, as far as boundary lines?
The same way they did it last time.
Okay, so that way we can bring
We
it
did
back
that-
to him.
We did that, how many years ago? 6, 5? Right when we got on
Back
the
in
board?
1999, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you were on the board. Yeah, we did. Oh, no, it was the city doing the rebound.
Yeah.
Okay, motion to
So
adjourn.
can we, Tito, so what are we
Second.
going to say
There
in
was a
that?
motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Now motion to what?
Adjourn.
Now motion to have Ms. Ayala look at the demographer for the boundary lines.
She's already been given the assignment.
Okay.
Because then they have to
We'll
come
do
to
that.
it because it's under 50, it's under so
Okay,
much.
we're done.
Motion adjourned?
Second.
Second, all in favor?